Welcome back. So because yesterday I got back home a little bit later than anticipated after going to PayPal Park to watch an international friendly between Guatemala versus El Salvador, that's why today I'm going to do one big review looking at the 11 remaining games that I'm going to talk about for match week number 8 because I've already did the free matinee games back on Saturday. But without further ado, let us actually begin because there's going to be a lot of games that we're going to talk about, and this is going to be relatively a long video. And certainly in terms of the remaining games I'm going to talk about, there were definitely some games there nothing really happened, and then there's some where everything happened, and it went full peak MLS in terms of some of the games that happened in the remaining ones that I'm going to talk about in this review. But let us first begin with the first game that we're going to talk about in this review, which is DC United versus the New England Revolution. So it's kind of the second new heir for Chad Ashton because, you know, he was the interim head coach after Van Olsen was fired, and now he's the interim head coach once again with Hernan Losada being fired. And once again, it's got off to a great start with a 3-2 win against the New England Revolution, though it definitely did not look like that early in this game because 6 minutes in, New England gets the opening lead, and it's Brendan Bai scoring from Hio and Boateng to give the Revs a 1-0 lead, and I thought the Revs, at least for the first 20 minutes, were all over DC. I mean, they had some chances to make it 2-0, and that it was also kind of exactly not what DC want to have now that they got rid of Losada and hope that they're once again starting a new era. But in the 24th minute, Estrada did put it wide from close range, as I thought DC did finally get back into this game. In the 26th minute, they tied the game. And remember that big name DP? Well, I wouldn't say big name, but more like big signings this off season of getting this Greek forward called Taxi Fontes. Well, he has finally arrived with DC and finally get a chance to play for the first time. In fact, he actually got the start in his first appearance for DC United, and what turns out that he would have probably the best debut, or at least one of the best debut we've seen a player coming to a league that we have seen. I mean, I'm not going to say he has the best debut because we all know that the best debut in MLS is Zlatan Ibrahimovic and what he did with the Galaxy in El Tráfico against LAFC. But this is pretty close to it as he scored here in the 26th minute to score his first career MLS goal and most importantly tied the game up at 1 apiece for DC. Now, Knighton then denied Gresso from close range in the 31st minute. There was no doubt that the momentum was with DC, though. As soon as I said that, New England did try to retake the lead in the 34th minute when Hio puts it wide from the free kick. Buxa then heads it wide from close range as you thought maybe New England has got that momentum back. I mean, it looked like this was one of those games where the momentum kind of swing back and forth depending on how each of the part of the game turns out to be. But instead, in the 39th minute, DC would take the lead. And it's Estrada scoring from Fontas and Gresso to give DC a 2-1 lead, and not long after, it would be 3-1 in favor of DC as Taxi Fontas would score again here to make it 3-1, though you gotta say that, yeah, for Brandon Knighton, this was not a great moment for him. Like, this one from Fontas, he kind of hits it straight to Knighton, and that, you know, that's one that Knighton should have saved, and this is also another example of how the Revs dearly miss Matt Turner, and they can't wait until they got that goalkeeper that they just signed a couple of weeks after, actually not a couple of weeks, but last month, to be arrived as soon as possible, because there's no doubt that Brian Knighton is not the answer, and also, you know, their previous goalkeeper that they seem to pretty much no longer want to play in Earl Edwards Jr. Yeah, he's not the answer to. So yeah, just like that, the Revs find themselves 3-1 down, although they did try to get one back in the first minute of stoppage time as Leggett had a free header, but it's tipped over the bar by Kepin. Little did we know that in the first half it was the Taxi Fontas show, but in the second half it was the John Kepin show. Just a couple of seconds later, and really on the next sequence, Bai had a free header that goes straight to Kepin, and we head to halftime with DC leading 3-1 against New England. Now, in the second half, New England really kind of picked off where they left off near the end of the first half, which is pushing for one back. But I thought DC looked pretty locked down early in the defensive end. I mean, they weren't really allowing New England to kind of absolutely blitz them with the amount of chances that the Revs were going to put. Though that would change, though, because in the 60th minute, Hio hits one straight to Kepin before Kepin absolutely robbed Altidore from from close range in the 67th minute. Durkin did had a rare chance for DC in the middle of the Revs blitz as he hits the side netting from close before in the 84th minute, Kepin would make another big save, robbing Buxa from close range. And there was no doubt the Revs were throwing the kitchen sink at DC, and that DC was just hanging on for dear life. It gets even more nervous for that crowd at Audi Field in the 86th minute when New England finally did get one back to set up a grandstand finish, and it's Buxa scoring from heel to make it a 1-goal game. And then in the 90th minute, Buxa looked to make it 3-3, but Kempen was able to deny him there. And despite all the pressure that the Revs, of course, put late in the game to try to salvage a point, DC hold on to win 3-2 in this game against the New England Revolution. As the shots in this one, 20 shots compared to 11 that DC had, 5 shots on goal compared to 8 that New England has, 9 shots off target compared to 2 that DC had, 3 shots that was blocked compared to 4 that DC had, and possession-wise, the Revs did have more than possession, 68% possession compared to 32% possession that DC had in this game. But what's more important in this is that DC was just more clinical in this game, and that they kind of had that one good spell of moment near the last 20 minutes of the first half, and that was kind of the difference in this game, and certainly a great start for them now under Chad Ashton. And let's see, they can build this victory into their next game. But for the New England Revolution, yeah, I think they are definitely in trouble. And that I thought in the last game when they did win 2-1 against Charlotte, maybe things were going to turn around. This is a reality check. In fact, when DC did made it 3-1 in this game, they even show later on after this game, they even show a footage of Carlos Hill literally screaming at Bruce Arena, and it seems like it's something to do with the tactics of how he's absolutely lit with the way that his team is played. And this is actually one of the rare times that I saw Bruce Arena. He didn't say anything. Like, Bruce Arena is not a guy that tends to be just easily humble, but I'm pretty sure he was humble in that moment, and that whatever Carlos Hill have said probably humble him in that, and that it must be something extreme to do that, because like I said, Bruce Arena is not a guy that can get humble very easily, and that you just got to feel like he's got to figure this out, because there is no way in the world when you look at this team that they should be a team that is near the bottom of the Eastern Conference. And let's see if they can, of course, figure things out, because if that's not the case, they're going to be looking like the LAFC of last year, where a team that was supposed to be an MLS Cup contender and have a lot of talent in their squad, and it's been all squandered because of either games that they have some bad finishing, or the fact that they just underachieve so much, and a lot of players not playing to their potential, as what we've seen with the rest throughout this season. But now moving on, in terms of the next match, is Austin versus the Vancouver Whitecaps. So this one is probably one of the least surprising result of the week, and that it's also a game where I know Austin, of course, are going to be banging their chest again, saying that yep, we're back in first place, until obviously I'll talk about later that LAFC did retake first place. But I'm pretty sure the Los Verdes fans are going to say that they are going to bang their chest that they are the best team in the West, or at least one of the best team in the West, and that people are going to argue that you still haven't played anybody. And that I also said in the preview, this was definitely a matchup that I know Austin's probably going to win, but it's definitely not going to help their cause in terms of showing that they are for real, because Vancouver this season has been very poor, and this was just another game where they were incredibly poor throughout this game. Although early on in the 5th minute, White did head one straight to Stuver, and I thought Austin backline looked really suspect early in this game, because it was a couple of times the Whitecaps was able to get through that Austin backline very easily. But then in the 11th minute, Austin would take the lead, and it's Maxi Urruti, or should I say a informed Maxi Urruti, scoring here from Jerussi to give Austin a 1-0 lead. And talk about bad defending. Yeah, this was bad defending for the Whitecaps. Like, they turned the ball over there in a bad position, and Austin basically punished Vancouver by committing that error. But in the 14th minute, Jerussi trying to make it 2-0, but he fires one straight to Hassel. I talked about the Austin defense being kind of suspect. It was kind of Vancouver's turn to kind of look suspect. In fact, their defense was all over the place in this first half. I mean, there was just so much space for Austin to exploit here in the first half. And when you are a defense that is having problem and you're facing against one of the most lethal attack this season, yeah, this is not going to end well, because after Hassel was able to deny Jerussi from close range in the 26th minute, Ruti would score his second goal here to give Austin a 2-0 lead. Cascante trying to make it 3-0, but he puts it wide from the back post. It was all Austin in this game. And I actually watched majority of this game, or keep a close eye on this game while these other game was going on. And the other games that was going on, there wasn't really much that has happened, so that's why I was keeping an eye on this one very much alongside with the ending of this one too. And yeah, I mean, it was pretty much one-way traffic, at least for the most part of the first half. Though Cavallini did had a rare Whitecaps chance, and really only the second chance that the Whitecaps has had, but he missed wide there in the 41st minute as we head to halftime with Austin leading 2-0. Now in the second half, just 20 seconds in, the Whitecaps almost score one back and make this a game as Dahomey fires it high 22nd into the second half. And I immediately wrote shades of Austin from last year, because one of the big issue for Austin last season is that they always come out of the second half slow, or there's times where they just give up goals right as the second half begin. I mean, you know, when this is kind of something that I thought they might have fixed last season with the way that they definitely have come out in the second half, not just decided to be left in the locker room and had that mentality that, yeah, the second half has actually started. But that was almost a moment where it's almost like classic Austin from their expansion year last year. But as I mentioned, the Whitecaps weren't able to take advantage. Ruti then fired one wide from long range as he was going for a hat trick. But in the 67th minute, it would be 3-0 in favor of Austin. And this is kind of also when I stopped really watching this game, as Jerussi would score for Cascante and Lima to make it 3-0 in favor of Austin. I mean, I'm pretty sure every Whitecaps fan turned off the TV, or even a neutral fan turned off the TV by then, because you knew that Austin was going to win this one. In fact, it could have been 4-0 in the 81st minute as Urruti once again trying to go for a hat trick, but he missed what there in the 81st minute. But it doesn't matter, because Austin with a dominant 3-0 win over the Whitecaps. And the shots in this one, 10 shots compared to 12 that the Whitecaps had, 1 shots on goal compared to 4 that Austin has. Both teams had 5 shots off target, 1 shot that was blocked compared to 6 that Austin has. And possession-wise, 68% possession compared to 32% possession that the Vancouver Whitecaps has in this game. I mean, this, again, was just one-way traffic throughout the entire game. And, you know, for the Whitecaps, still stuck on 1 wins, and now being at the bottom of the Western Conference once again because of what will happen. Then on the other board that I'll talk about, we no longer have a team that is winless after week number 8. And you know, I also would say that, you know, for Vanni Sartini, I don't know if the hot seat is starting to get closer to him, because, you know, yeah, this has just not been the start that his team was hoping in the beginning of the season. Like, after such a great run that they had last year, you were hoping that they can continue that, but it seems like more and more now that last year's incredible run that the Whitecaps had to finish the season and making the playoffs look more like a mirage than actually something that finally has created a success in terms of deep rebuild that they've been going through for the past couple of years. But moving on, in terms of the next match, is Sporting KC versus the Columbus Crew. And, you know, I talked about the game between the Union and Montreal being the most boring game of this week. This one probably has a case that it might have topped the most boring game of the week. And it's not a big surprise, because when you have two teams that have struggled to score goals and have no identity going for in the attack, it was bound to end 0-0. But even then, you know, I said the same thing in that Minnesota versus Chicago game, and it turns out that was not the case. So I was maybe giving hope that this might be a game that won't end 0-0, and especially with this being a desperation derby, yeah, you know, you would expect one of these teams to show some desperation and get all 3 points, but instead, it ends in a very dull 0-0 draw between two teams that have really struggled in their form in their last couple of games. Now, early on in the first half, Barry hits one straight to Milia, while Ubo well, hits it wide from close range. And 20 minutes in, Sporting KC have yet to register a shot. And keep in mind, they are playing at home in this game. Like, so throughout the past couple of seasons, even during the year when they finish 11th, this is a team that is always tough to beat when they're playing at home. In this game, it definitely did not look like that, and especially the way that, I mean, they were actually stuck at 0 shots throughout this entire first half until the 45th or the first minute of stoppage time, as the shots were 4-0 in favor of Columbus early in this one. But like I said, in the first minute of stoppage time, the first shot on goal for Sporting KC actually turns out to be a big opportunity because Shelton was open in the back post, but Room was able to rob him there, and that Sporting KC could have easily had to have time leading 1-0, and probably don't deserve the 1-0 lead with the way that this was probably the poorest first half I've seen Sporting KC have played at home, and especially under Peter Vermees. But we do head to halftime scoreless in this one. In the second half, Ikembe hits one into the side netting, and again, despite the fact that Sporting KC continued to dominate possession in this game, their final third quality was non-existent in this one. And again, this has been an issue not just for SKC but also for Columbus, where neither of these teams show any final third quality whatsoever. Every time when the ball is about to arrive in the final third, it's either broken up or there's just some sloppy passes, and the other team basically do the same thing on the other end. Now, Room did deny Showery in the 63rd minute. Before in the 76th minute, thankfully there was a weather delay that kind of stopped this game for a bit, because I think if you're a neutral and if you actually really spend a lot of time watching this game, I think that was the time where you basically turn off the TV, because it was just feels like nothing is going to happen in this one. In fact, when that weather delay was happening, I was kind of close to doing so, but I also was I knew that I had to, of course, keep watching this game because I have to do a review and talk about what happened in this one. And thankfully, the delay wasn't that long. It was 47 minutes. I mean, I say it's not long, but 47 minutes is still a very long time. But compared to some of the weather delay that we've been having early in the season, this actually is not as long as some of those ones that we had. I think the most recent one when Inter Miami had a long weather delay that started the game around 10 o'clock, and that game didn't finish until almost near midnight. But the game did restart at 10:05 p.m. local time. Dejanic actually almost scored an own goal and gifted Sporting KC what could have been the winner in the 82nd minute, but Rome was able to palm that one away before Amelia was able to deny Etienne in the 85th minute, though that save wouldn't have counted because the flag actually went up for offside. There was some pushing and shoving by both teams late in this game. I mean, there was a sense that both of these teams were incredibly frustrated with the way that this one was about to end in a 0-0 draw, and that of course is the case, as Sporting KC and Columbus unsurprisingly ends in a 0-0 draw. And the shots in this one, again, just like the game between the Union and Montreal, where I think I talked about how that game there was a combined of 12 shots, it's the same case in this one. Only 9 shots compared to just 3 that Sporting KC had, though all 3 of those shots was on goal compared to just 1 that Columbus had. No shots off target compared to 3 that Columbus had. 5 shots that was blocked compared to none that Sporting KC had. And possession-wise, 63% possession compared to 37% possession that Columbus has in this game. And again, this feels like it's just one of those games where nobody won in this one. I mean, yes, nobody won in terms of the result, but in terms of the way how both of these coaches would look after this game, they would all be happy, because for Sporting KC, the goal scoring problem and the attack continues to be an issue. And for Columbus, yes, they got a roll point, and normally when you get a roll point, and especially how the Crew is considered one of the worst team on the road, it's a good thing, but they also didn't do much on the attacking end too. And if I would also say that they probably did the most on the attacking in this one too, but they weren't able to find a goal, and that their winless run continue after this game against Sporting KC. But that being said, moving on in terms of the next match is another game that ended in a 0-0 draw, though this one was definitely much more entertaining compared to the game that I talked about. And this was also a game where I would say it was kind of a tale of two halves, and you could maybe say that even though Charlotte got their historic first ever point on the road, they probably should have got their first ever win on the road in this game against the Rapids. But early on in the first half, Vallecilla did put it wide from close range. Almost forgot that Gustavo Vallecilla is now a Rapids player. Like, I keep thinking that he's still with Cincinnati, but it turns out he's now actually with the Rapids. I think it was part of a off-season free agency signing that the Rapids has had. But Rubio in the 9th minute struck the post from 10 yards out. That wouldn't be the only time that he would struck the post, because after I wrote the Rapids press early for the lead, Rubio would struck the post again in the 23rd minute, this time from 4 yards out, and one that, yeah, he definitely want to have back, because when you struck the post from that close, I mean, it's unlucky anytime when you strike the post. When you struck the post from that close to the range, you know it's a sitter that you miss, and that was one that, again, it was an absolute sitter that Rubio missed, and one that he's definitely wished that he would have another chance to do so. But we had to halftime scoreless between both of these teams, as the game really didn't have much after that missed opportunity from the Rapids. But in the second half, this is when Charlotte really kind of took over. In the 50th minute, Yarbo robbed both Schwadetsky and Alcevir, and that there was even a third attempt for Charlotte in that same sequence, as Schwadetsky actually blasted that one into the stands. And I wrote Charlotte started the second half as the better team, and they almost took the lead again in the 58th minute when Alan Franco puts it high from close range. Then Schwadetsky had a deflected shot that goes wide in the 75th minute. I thought Schwadetsky had another good game in this one. Probably was very unlucky to not score a goal in this one. Charlotte, of course, continued to be in control and was really pressing for that historic first ever win on the road. Lindsay then flashed one wide from close range in the 82nd minute. There was some heated exchange between both of these teams a couple of minutes later, before in the first minute of stoppage time, Mackenzie Gaines. I mean, I think he was thinking about the headlines here, because he went through on goal here. This was a huge opportunity for Charlotte to get a late winner in this game against Colorado, and becoming, seems like a place that is a favorite place for expansion team to get their first ever road win, because we saw Austin did it last year against the Colorado Rapids, and we almost saw Charlotte did it again in this one. But if only Gaines were able to keep his cooler head and slots it past Yarbo, because instead Yarbo did do a good job, make himself big as possible, and he robbed Gaines here after Gaines went through on goal. And yeah, in the end, it ends scoreless in this one between the Rapids and Charlotte. Shots in this one, 16 shots compared to 11 that the Rapids had. No shots on goal compared to 5 that Charlotte has. 5 shots off target compared to 7 that Colorado has. 4 shots that was blocked compared to 6 that Charlotte has. And possession-wise, Charlotte did have the better of the possession. 55% possession compared to 45% possession that the Colorado Rapids has in this game. And keep in mind, those posts that Rubio hit and those posts that the Rapids also hit, they don't count as a shot on goal. So therefore, that's why they actually ends up with 0 shots on goal, when some Rapids fans feel like they should have got 2 with the way that, though they had 2 chances that was hit off the post. But yeah, this is a game that I don't think either of these, I mean, I guess for Charlotte they'll be happy, because they get their first ever road point. But you also sense that they wish that they could have got a win in this one, and especially again for Mackenzie Gaines, he's gonna think about this game, that missed chance in stoppage time all night long, and one that could land him in the history books of this young franchise of sealing the first ever victory for Charlotte FC on the road. But for the Colorado Rapids, the struggle continued for Robin Frazier's side. I mean, I've talked about how it seemed like they had turned a corner after they went on a good run, but now it seems like they're getting themselves back into that bad form that they had to kick off their campaign in 2022. And dropping points to an expansion team is definitely not a good thing, but dropping points especially to an expansion team that have not even got a point coming into the game is definitely not a good thing. But that being said, I am now going to switch boards and look at the remaining Saturday game that happened in match week number 8. But yeah, moving on into the next match is another 0-0 draw. This time it is between the Portland Timbers and RSL, and I swear this is the second consecutive week where I do a review where I talk about 3 straight 0-0 draw in a review. And don't worry, we'll get to some of those exciting games, especially this one that turns out to be one of the craziest games from this week. And notice I say one of the craziest, because we also have another crazy game to talk about in their Sunday action. But the thing about this 0-0 draw between the Portland Timbers and RSL is that the Timbers just cannot solve the RSL bunker in this. I mean, it seemed like Pablo Mascherani decided to do the same formula that he did against the other Cascadia team, the Seattle Sounders, in the playoffs, and did it here against the Timbers, and it kind of worked out because they earned themselves a hard-fought 0-0 draw against a Timbers side that is going to be very frustrated they didn't score a goal and able to solve the RSL bunker. But in the first half, I thought it was actually a slow start to this game as the shots were only 2-1 in favor of the Timbers, and none of those free shots even came close to trouble both goalkeepers. Tuluma then struck a free kick over the bar. I mean, why not? Bill Tuluma is starting to become one of the most lethal free kick taker in the league, and probably the most lethal free kick taker in the league that is a center back. And I will also say that there has been time where Giovanni Savarese actually put Tuluma as a striker, which that was very strange to see, because I think that's probably the first time I've seen a center back decide to become a number 9 in part of the game. I mean, you would think that that would also be something that Almeida would like to use, but, you know, I don't recall that Almeida has ever done that crazy thing, because despite the fact that, you know, I've talked about how Almeida has did some crazy things about that. I mean, you knew I had to make an Almeida reference. I mean, he might be fired, but, you know that he's in the spirit, and that's why I also will go back, talk about how in this next game we'll talk about, it seemed like the spirit of Almeida is certainly still alive. But going back to this game itself, Bravo did blaze one wide in the 33rd minute before McMath tipped Paredes shot over the bar, and, you know, I thought the Timbers, they definitely was starting to get going on the attack, and the shots were 5-1 in favor of Portland up to that point. But we do head to halftime scoreless between both of these teams. Moreno then curled one straight to McMath in the 55th minute before Ruiz really had the first real opportunity for RSL, but he struck the post. But in some way, you got to say that Ruiz got to do better in that chance. But in the 75th minute, Cheng also, I thought, should have scored here, as he had a close range shot that hit straight to Ivicic. And, you know, RSL, even though they were bunkering all game, they looked like they were going to try to steal this one on the road. I mean, the Timbers, they did have some lapse of concentration, and that we've seen so many times before. Even when a team that is dominating the opposition, especially the home team that is dominate the road opposition, it doesn't take much for the road team to maybe score one goal either off of a deflection or just a scramble or whatever that get them the one goal. They're going to be in the driver's seats, and there were a couple of times that RSL almost did so. Though in the 3rd minute stoppage time, Nishgoda did hit one straight to McMath, and yeah, in the end, RSL, who had a rough past 2 game after that 6-0 loss that they suffer against NYCFC on the road, and then suffer an embarrassing U.S. Open Cup exit against Northern Colorado Hailstorm, to keep a clean sheet in this game against the Portland Timbers. And the shots in this one, 15 shots compared to just 5 that RSL had, 5 shots on goal compared to 2 that RSL had, 5 shots off target for the 1 that RSL had, 5 shots that was blocked for the 2 that RSL had, and possession-wise, the Timbers had the better of the possession. 66% possession compared to 34% possession that RSL has in this game. And one thing to also note in this game, Diego Chara did not play in this one for the Portland Timbers, so this is not a big surprise that the Timbers weren't able to get a win, because, you know, there was at one point for the Timbers when Chara was in the starting 11. The Timbers have a very good record, but when Chara is not in the starting 11, and this is Diego Chara that I'm talking about, because I forgot to mention that the Timbers have two Chara, and you got the Chara brothers with the Portland Timbers. But, you know, when Diego Chara is not with the Timbers, there's at one point where they didn't even get a single win. So, yeah, you know, it's a rough result for the Timbers, who their slow start continued this season, but it's certainly a great result for RSL after such a disastrous last 2 games that they had in these last couple of days. But now moving on, in terms of the next game, is the Quakes and the Seattle Sounders. So, you know that meme where, you know, how there's that Scooby-Doo meme where I believe, I forgot what was that character, it might have been Fred. He decided to kind of unveil the mask of the culprit, and it turns out it was actually that guy. Well, I think after this game, they probably should do the same thing and unmask Alex Carvalho, because I feel like Alex Carvalho was secretly Mateus Almeida in this game. Because this was literally the same thing I've seen under Almeida for the last 3.5 years, and that it just feels like maybe this team hasn't got rid of that habit too, where they just decided to have these crazy game. And even though I know throughout this game they didn't man mark as what we seen Almeida decided to do, they definitely had some moments where it seems like they were still looked like an Almeida team and had some boneheaded defensive mistake that cost them that really looked like just the undoing of the Almeida system. But one thing I will also say about this game is that this game also just kind of summarized the Quakes this season at home, where, you know, as bad as this season has been for the Quakes, and as much as there's so much turmoil behind the scenes, one thing I will say that the Quakes at least has done well, and one positive I will say about this team does not give up at home. Like, besides the one defeat that they had against the Red Bulls, which of course it has to come on opening day, as I mentioned, and that's the one that I attend. And I've said before, I'm just a curse for the Quakes whenever I attend Quakes home game. Quakes have done well at home. Like, they're actually been undefeated ever since that opening day loss, and pretty much all their games so far at home has really been come from behind result that either ends in a draw, and then finally here ends it in a victory. Now, early on in this one, I thought the Quakes were on the front foot early as Ibovasi fired one wide from close range. But then in the 14th minute, a penalty was given to the Sounders as Nathan brought down Ruidíaz in the box. Now, they did go to VAR to check whether or not if Nathan's challenge on Ruidíaz in the box was actually worthy of a red card, because originally the referee only give a yellow and a penalty for the Sounders. And I gotta say, yeah, there's an argument that this should have been a red card. And I know after this game, Sounders fans are going to be very pissed about the refereeing in this one, especially the way that this actually wasn't the only controversial refereeing decision that happened in this one. And when you look at this call, you know, again, I think to stay unbiased, there's definitely a case that should be a red card, especially with the way that the studs were definitely showing, and that you know, there's times where I definitely saw that to be resorting a straight red. And also knowing the fact that they did go to VAR to check on that, I was hoping I was definitely hoping for the worst with the way that Nathan was going to get a straight red here. But fortunately for the Quakes, that did not happen. It stays at a yellow card, but the bad news is the penalty is still given, which Ladero was able to put that one away to give the Sounders a 1-0 lead. Not long after, it would be 2-0 in favor of the Sounders, as in the 20th minute, Rodin would score from Ladero to make it 2-0 in favor of Seattle. And, you know, those bad set-piece defending from the Almeida air, yeah, it continued. Like, this was just, you know, we've seen before where the Quakes sometimes, when they play this man-marking system, well, the reason why man-marking system doesn't tend to work out in MLS is that if you have a player that's not able to track their man, and especially on the set piece where, you know, if you're man marking someone and you lost him, yeah, you're basically leaving that one of the opposition wide open like that. And in this case, Calvo basically completely lost his man here, and Rodin basically just easily heads that one away to give the Sounders a 2-1 lead. Or actually, was that a shot that he took? I don't think that was a header, but either way, it was a 2-0 lead that the Sounders had against the Quakes. Montero then puts it high from close range in the 21st minute before there was a scramble in the Quakes box that almost gave the Sounders a third goal, but thankfully the Quakes were able to deal with that. Marie then fires it high from close range in the 31st minute. I thought the Quakes were starting to get some chances, but not taking it is definitely a problem. I mean, you know, it's kind of surprised that the Quakes were still getting chances, because knowing the fact that the Sounders are very locked down. And I also haven't even mentioned the fact that this was also a game where it was very interesting that Brian Schmetzer decided to start the strongest team in this one. Consider they do have that big CCL final two-legged affair against Pumas, and that first leg is going to happen not long from now. I would think that the Sounders were going to go with a Tacoma Defiance type of team like they did against Inter Miami, but no, they really start out their A team in this one, and that include their defense, a lot of starters in defense in this one. And, you know, the Quakes, they just had no problem in terms of what usually is a very stingy Sounders defense. But in the 45th minute, you with a shot in the back post despite being wide open. Again, not taking those chances. It was a huge problem for this team, and also that was kind of when after when the Quakes were down 2-0, I already knew that the Quakes are not going to win this because the Sounders they don't give up multiple leads like ever. But in the first minute of stoppage time, they at least gave me some false hope when Espinoza basically got one back for the Quakes. And this originally was a great save from Stefan Fry, but it kind of came right back to Espinoza, who he still had a lot to do. I mean, he had to hit that one on the volley, and he definitely connects that one well to give the Quakes some false hope heading into the second half and cut this deficit to just 1. Now in the second half, the Quakes continued to start out strong and was continuing to feel that false hope is still going to resort in an equalizer. But unsurprisingly, in the 57th minute, the Sounders retake that 2-goal lead. And it's Morris scoring from Ladero to make it 3-1 in favor of the Sounders. And I even wrote that's pretty much game, set, and match. Because as much as I know I set false hope for the Quakes did really try to push to tie the game up in the beginning of the second half. But, with this being now a 3-1 lead for the Sounders, that means that, I don't think the Sounders are going to give up a multiple goal lead, right? I mean, surely they can't give up two goals in a game, consider they haven't done that since their expansion year back in 2009. But in the 64th minute, Espinoza would score his second goal here from Montero to make it 3-2 in favor of the Sounders. And yeah, there's your annual Stefan Fry howler that we see every single year. I mean, it's incredible that as great as Stefan Fry is for this league, and that he's definitely going to be going for goalkeeper of the year once again. He always tends to commit at least one boneheaded howler that you just simply cannot explain how he wasn't able to save. And here it is. I mean, this one was it was kind of a knuckler that Espinoza basically hit it toward goal, but you just feel like Fry clearly should have smothered that one, and it just kind of went under his glove and bounced into the back of the net. But yeah, that of course gave once again the Quakes some false hope. But again, even then, I was thinking, no, there's no way the Quakes are going to score a third goal to tie the game up. Well, before I even get a chance to say the whole thing, Jackson Yule would score from Montero and Espinoza, and all of a sudden the game is tied at 3 apiece. I immediately wrote what's going on, with 3 question mark and 3 exclamation mark. One represent every single goal that the Quakes, of course, score, and the exclamation mark represent every goal that the Sounders conceded. And I've also kind of wrote after that, someone needs to unmask Cavallo and reveal that he's actually Almeida and that he's still in charge in this game. Because this was just textbook Almeida and textbook Quakes level of game, where this is just a team that when they could look at one point being the best team in the league, and then in a blink of an eye they can look like the worst team in the league. And in this case, it seemed like they went from being why they are the only winless team to be a team where sometimes they can create chaos out of nowhere. And yeah, just out of nowhere, this game was all tied up at 3 apiece. Like, if you would have even go out just to throw away the trash, I'm pretty sure when you come back in, you would definitely not expect the score to be tied up at 3 apiece. And yet, that of course is the case. The game was all tied at 3 apiece. It could have been 4-3 when Montero hits one straight to Stefan Fry. Before, in the 3rd minute of stoppage time, this is where the other controversial call happened, as a PK was given to the Quakes after VAR deemed that New Hoop shoved Calvo in the box. And the reason why I say this is controversial, and I probably should have put shove in a quotation mark, because this was kind of more like half of New Hoop trying to shove Calvo to the box, and half basically Calvo decided to dive in the box to draw a penalty. But nevertheless, it kind of worked out, because even when they go to VAR, it seems like the referee was convinced enough that was enough for a penalty. And again, I just feel like, even being a Quakes fan, I don't think that's a penalty. I think that is incredibly soft. But I guess you knew that the league wants to continue to create a narrative in this game that the Quakes will finally get their first win. So I guess maybe maybe they decided to give this one either way. Or I would maybe like to say that Don Gabbert probably was the one that was operating in the VAR room, and I'm pretty sure he was pointing at a gun at the VAR official to not demand him to give the penalty to the Quakes, because that's what we need in this league. We need some drama, we need some chaos, and we need some peak MLS kind of moment, and maybe even MLS after dark moment, because of the way that this game was. By the time that this penalty was given, it was already midnight Eastern. And in the fourth minute stoppage time, with Espinoza had all the pressure in the world, he would score here in the penalty spot to complete his hat trick. And yeah, in the end, in what probably is the most Mateus Almeida-esque kind of game, despite we thought that Almeida being fired a couple of days ago means that the Quakes won't play like this. No, it seemed like they of course continued to play like this and pulled off a dramatic 4-3 win against the Seattle Sounders. And like I said, the Sounders, it's been almost 14 years since they have last lost a game where they give up multiple goals. Well, actually 13 years to be exact. The last time it happened was in their expansion year back in 2009. So to say that this Sounders team don't give up leads easily, and especially give up multiple goal lead to lose a game, is an understatement. It basically never happened with this team. So that's why I'm just completely shocked, and that this of course was the case. And when you look also the shots in this game, the Quakes did have 23 shots compared to 10 that the Sounders had. I mean, that so-called stingy defense. Yeah, it's kind of surprising the fact that they gave up 23 shots in this one to the Quakes, and also gave up 7 shots on goal compared to 7 that the Sounders had, 8 shots off target compared to 6 that the Sounders had, and 8 shots that was blocked compared to 3 that the Sounders had. And the possession-wise, 55% possession compared to 45% possession that the Sounders had in this game. And overall, I know that I have made a lot of joke about this being a very Mateus Almeida game, but I just feel like this is something that, as much as, once again, this is this is what exactly the neutral want, and maybe the neutral will still stick around with watching Quakes game, even though Almeida is gone right now. This is not sustainable, and I really hope that in the future the Quakes don't play it like this, because I know this is not going to be something that will get them to make progress and move on from the chaotic Almeida era that this team has. But at least at the end of this game they did come out with a win, because so many times this team, as much as I said that they have fought hard to get a draw after being down in this game, it's good the fact that they did come back and eventually get a win out of this one, albeit in a very controversial way, and in a way where, I mean, I don't know, I should say they don't deserve this, because the stats basically shows that they actually were the better team in this one, but certainly with the way how controversial this game is, especially for some referee decision, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I guess all I'll say is I'm happy that the Quakes finally get a win, but let's just hope this is not how Alex Cavallo will continue to promote this, because like I said, I don't think this is sustainable, and I think if this team is going to get better in the future, they need to move on from the Almeida era and stop playing these kind of chaotic games I've seen in the past. But now moving on into the next match, after I spent a lot of time talking about this game. And as I said, this isn't the only crazy game that we saw this weekend. But the next one wasn't actually the one that I was also going to talk about, where the scoreline ends up to be kind of like a pinball machine. But instead, the next game that I'm going to talk about is a game that also almost ended at a 0-0 draw, and we almost had a repeat of last week, where there was 4 0-0 draw that happened last week, and this one was coming very close to being it, as Nashville, we knew that coming into this game, this team was just going to bunker. Like, this team was just going to just not do much on the attack. Well, actually, I won't say that they weren't going to do much on the attack, but they may try to counter a little bit, but obviously Gary Smith was going to just try to bunker and try to salvage a 0-0 draw so that they can end this 8-game marathon of a road trip on a high. But unfortunately, it just feels like maybe they kind of ran out of gas in the end, and the Galaxy did find a way to get that one elusive goal that they've been pretty much chasing throughout the entire game. Though early on, I mentioned, Nashville kind of didn't do much in this game. They actually did a lot early in this one, as Mukhtar puts it wide from close range before Davis puts one over the bar, and that I thought they were actually the better team, at least for the first 10 minutes of this first half. Though that would really kind of be the only attacking that Nashville would do for the rest of the game, because after that, Cabral almost scored against the run of play, but he hits the side netting because, Cabral not allowed to score a goal. He's one of the most cursed number 9 in the league. And I thought the Galaxy really started to control the possession and control this game, but like most team against Nashville, they had trouble in terms of creating much chances. Although they did create a chance in the 29th minute as Chicharito hits one straight to Willis. I thought Nashville did a good job in terms of shutting down Chicharito in this game, as Chicharito didn't really had a lot of chances in this game, and this definitely is one that he's not going to remember for a very long time. There was then a shout for a handball for the Galaxy that was not given in the 35th minute as we head to halftime 0-0 between both of these teams. In the second half, Alvarez almost broke the deadlock, but he struck the post from close range. There was another shout for a penalty for the Galaxy, not given in the 55th minute, but there was no doubt the Galaxy was pushing for the opener, while Nashville was just in full bunker mode. Well, they pretty much was in full bunker mode ever since the 10th minute. Though they did have a rare chance in the 63rd minute as Romney almost scored against his former team as he hits that one high from close range. Costa then missed wide from close in the 67th minute, or actually not from close, but more like from the free kick range. Before Willis was able to deny Revolson in the 80th minute, and it just kind of feels like it's not going to be there for the Galaxy because it feels like Nashville was going to pull this off as they have been so many times in the past, where once they're able to just sit in that deep bunker and the game remains 0-0, most of the time they get the result. But this was not one of those times, because in the 86th minute, the Nashville defensive bunker was finally breached as Jovic would score here from Williams to give the Galaxy a 1-0 lead. And I like how Jovic immediately jumped to the Riot Squad supporter group to celebrate with the fans. I mean, I guess maybe in some way he should have celebrated with his team too, but I guess he definitely wants to celebrate with the fans. And maybe you could say that there has to be a lot of relief inside Dignity Health Sports Park, because they were waiting for that moment to explode, and they finally did that in the 86th minute. And I guess maybe it's only fitting that they're able to celebrate with a player that decided to do so. But other than that, there was some tempers flare between both of these teams as Romney and Chicharito kind of had some choice words. I'm not sure if Dave Romney and Chicharito was with each other with the Galaxy, because I think Chicharito was brought, I think in 2019, I believe, and Romney, of course, was already been traded by Nashville, so they weren't really on the same team. But they definitely had some choice words knowing that they were trying to say that even though I'm no longer a Galaxy player, I'm still basically control and run this town. Now in the first minute of stoppage time, Jovic hits one over the bar as the Galaxy was trying to make sure that they can maybe get a second goal to keep this one for maybe Nashville just kind of push late. I mean, I feel like after when Nashville gave up that goal, you just felt like they just has no energy left to trying to get an equalizer. But the Galaxy did want to make sure, because that their defense can sometimes be leaky, and we have seen before where when you be complacent late in the game, you can definitely give up an easy goal on the other end. But fortunately, that did not happen, as in the end, the Galaxy were able to win 1-0 in this one. Shots in this one, 17 shots per the 4 that Nashville has, 6 shots on goal per the 1 that Nashville has, 5 shots off target per the 1 that Nashville has, 6 shots out blocked per the 2 that Nashville has, and possession-wise, 67% possession compared to 44% possession that Nashville has in this game. Or actually, I'm sorry, 34% possession. That doesn't equal 100% if you add that one up. But there's no doubt that, for Nashville, there's no shame of losing this one. I mean, getting 11 points for their first 8 road game, as what Gary Smith have said, that their target was 8 points, so they definitely have reached that mark. But also, with them coming out of this 8-game road trip, being in 8th place and still in the hunt to make it to the playoffs. I mean, they're only 1 point out of the playoffs, and that pretty much 2/3 of their remaining game this season is going to be at home. This team is definitely in a good shape to not only make it to the playoffs, but maybe get to the top spot in the Western Conference, and pretty much cement that I make the right prediction of putting this team as the top team to finish the season. I have not forgot about my prediction that I made early this season, and so far, at least from what I've seen in the league, I know that I have definitely got some wrong, but there's some that I have definitely got right. And even though, again, Nashville is one of those teams that maybe doesn't seem like I have got it right, with the way how they still have a lot of home games left, and if Nashville can be good at home, which at times last season that was an issue at times, because with the way that they did drop home points, but if they can kind of improve that when they have when they have a lot of home games left at their new dig in Geodis Park, I think this team should definitely be gunning for first position. I mean, they're only 8 points back of first position, so they're not that far in terms of getting that top spot with a lot of games left for this season. But that being said, I am now going to switchboard one more time and look at the 4 Sunday game that happened yesterday. But moving on, in terms of the next match, is Inter Miami versus Atlanta United, and this was really one of those games where the better team lost because they weren't able to take away their opportunity, and the other team was just more clinical in this game. And in this one, Inter Miami was the more clinical side, while Atlanta United, despite having majority of the chances, were only able to put away one of them. And that one actually came early in this game in the 12th minute, as Cisneros would score for Atlanta to give them a 1-0 lead, and finally end a bit of a goal drought that Atlanta, of course, were enduring. Remember, they didn't score in their last 2 games, but Cisneros finally ended that goal drought. And he almost got the second goal for Atlanta just 6 minutes later, but he hits it straight to Marsman. But then in the 28th minute, it's that man again, Leo Campana, scoring from Yetland and Lassiter to tie the game up at 1 apiece. And I think after this game, it pretty much should end the debate of whether or not if Campana should be starting over Higuain. I mean, unless if Phil Neville decided to do another boneheaded kind of decision, which I know Phil Neville has done a lot of boneheaded decisions, but this one should be pretty easy for him to make. He's got to start Campana over Higuain, especially with the way that Campana is probably in the best form of his life, and that this is probably the first time that Inter Miami actually have a guy that they can be a reliable goal scorer, and probably the go-to guy that they have on the attack, because what Leo Campana has done in these last couple of games has been short of nothing amazing. But in the 41st minute, Amada, I thought he should have scored here, as he missed just wide from 10 yards out. I mean, he did all the hard work in terms of getting himself in a good position, but he just put that one wide. And, also for the most expensive signing in MLS history, you expect him to put that one in. Lennon had an opportunity right before halftime, but he fires one wide from a tight angle as we head to halftime, tied at 1 apiece, despite Atlanta by far were the better team in the first half. And in the second half, Marsman had to deny Amada, but he did allow a rebound, which Brooks Lennon, he should have scored here. I mean, he had an empty net to shoot for about 4 yards out, but it almost felt like he kind of panicked here and basically puts it over the bar. Atlanta, no doubt, was pressing to try to get the lead back, and Miami was on the back foot. Like they looked like they were vulnerable on the defensive end. I mean, as good as this Miami run has been ever since they broke their winless run, their defense is still a bit of an issue. And if they were playing against a more clinical side, they probably could have lost this one. But as I said, they weren't playing against a team that was very clinical. And also, Marsman, despite the fact that he did had a bit of a mistake in the 49th minute of allowing a big rebound, this time he was able to push that one away from the dangerous, as he denied Cisneros from close range. And then in the 64th minute, Miami would take the lead. It's Bryce Duke scoring his first career goal for Inter Miami from Campana to make it 2-1 in favor of the hosts. And not only the fact that is against the run of play, but Campana is involved in this one. I mean, what a beautiful play that was, with him just kind of played this one back into the middle, which Duke basically just easily tapped it in for probably the easiest goal he will ever score. And yeah, Inter Miami was up 2-1 in this game. Goodman trying to tie it for Atlanta, but he fires one right to Marsman. There was a huge shout for a penalty, as Lennon thought that he was brought down by Noah Allen in the box. In fact, they actually did go to VAR to check whether or not indeed it was a penalty, and credit the decision by VAR to not give that one a penalty, because I feel like Lennon did embellish a little bit. I mean, yes, there was contact that Nolan Allen did put on Lennon, and I think there was a couple of times that Taylor Twelveman mentioned the fact that, yeah, there's contact. There could be the case that this could be a penalty. No. You can clearly see on the replay that Lennon basically embellished that one, almost trying to sell that one, and, you know, credit the fact that the referee decided to stick with his call, because we have just seen so many times before, especially after this weekend, after the game I talked about between the Sounders and the Quakes, how, you know, when the referee decided to go to VAR and, you know, they don't see the fact that maybe a player decided to embellish a foul with that slow motion, they would just give it a penalty and overturn the call. But that doesn't seem like was the case in this one, which I'm pretty sure that makes Sounders fan angry if they were watching this one. But there was no doubt that Atlanta continued to throw the kitchen sink to try to tie this game up. Cisneros had one just wide in the 4th minute of stoppage time, but in the end, Miami hold on to win 2-1 in this one, to win their 3rd straight game after starting the season winless. And the shots in this one, 20 shots compared to just 7 that Miami has. 7 shots on goal for the 2 that Miami has. 3 shots off target for the 7 that Atlanta has. 6 shots that was blocked for the 2 that Miami has. And possession-wise, Atlanta has 63% possession compared to just 37% possession that Inter Miami has in this game. And again, Atlanta dominate every single category in the stats chart. And when you also watch this game, they were by far the better team, but because of the lack of finishing, and Inter Miami was able to be so lethal with those 2 shots on goal, ends up into the back of net, they're able to win this game. And Atlanta winless run that they've been having, it continue, and it has to be very frustrating, because again, this was probably the best that they looked without Joseph Martinez ever since Martinez went down with a knee injury. But they come out of South Florida with nothing because they weren't being very clinical in front of goal. But moving on, in terms of the next match, is Orlando versus the New York Red Bulls, and the Red Bulls continue to defy logic this season. I mean, I still don't understand how they're so good on the road, but when they play at home, they look like a team that should not be belong in the playoffs. Like, I don't remember a team that kind of looks like this on the road before. I mean, I've seen before where, you know, there time where teams can be very dominant at home, but, you know, they on the road they look nothing like their dominant side. And it also just kind of shows you why there is that classic principle where, you know, you get 3 points at home, you get draws on the road, and you're guaranteed to make it to the playoffs. But at least for the New York Red Bulls, they're doing it backwards, which is why it kind of defies logic. And it kind of gets to a point where now they actually have just got one game on the road left that they can get a win in that they will tie the record for the longest winning streak on the road that was set by the LA Galaxy back in 1998. Now, the first shot of the game actually came in the 20th minute as Fernandez missed wide from close range. And again, it was a slow start in this game between the Red Bulls and Orlando City. Fernandez then tees another shot that goes wide in the 23rd minute. But then in the 24th minute, the Red Bulls would get the 1-0 lead. And it's Laquinhas scoring from Fernandez and Morgan to give the Red Bulls a 1-0 lead. So even though Fernandez does not get on the score sheet despite having some good early chances, he still was able to get on the assist chart as the Red Bulls deservedly lead 1-0 in this one. Though, despite that lead, I still thought that Orlando had most of the possession, but it kind of played right in the hands of the Red Bulls. I mean, I think there was many times they mentioned in this broadcast the Red Bulls on the road, they actually have the lowest percent of possession out of any team. And, you know, I talk about defy all logic with the Red Bulls doing well on the road. That's also kind of defy logic too. Like, you have the lowest possession on the road, and yet you're basically won all your road game. Though I guess maybe this is kind of just the new age of soccer where possession really doesn't matter anymore. Like, if you're very clinical on the counterattack, as we have seen in this game for the Red Bulls, and especially most of the game that they have play on the road, you can definitely score goals. And the Red Bulls definitely, they took advantage of being dangerous on the transition, and there was time where Orlando was having a handful dealing with that one. Though, that being said, 31 minutes into this game, Orlando still have yet to register a shot because they had a tough time in terms of breaking down this Red Bulls defense, which was very, very good. In the 40th minute, Cáceres had a deflected shot that went wide. The shots were 5-0 in favor of the Red Bulls up to that point, before it would be 6-0 after Galese denied Fletcher from the near post, and we had to halftime with the Red Bulls leading 1-0. And, you know, if you're Gerhard Stuver, you'll be happy that your team is leading 1-0 on the road, but you know that in the back of his head, he's probably not happy the fact that it's still only 1-0, consider they absolutely dominate in the first half. And you know that Orlando is going to eventually wake up, because, you know, whatever he said at the halftime talk to fire up his guys to get that second goal work, because just 3 minutes in, the Red Bulls would double their lead. And it's Cáceres Jr. who doubles the Red Bull lead just 3 minutes into the second half. And in the 60th minute, Orlando finally registered their first shot of the game as Araujo blasts one into the stands. There was then a huge shout for a penalty that was not given for Orlando, and that I thought Orlando finally started to wake up. I mean, for the first 60 minutes, they were sleepwalking in this game on the attack. Like I mentioned, even with most of the possession that they had, they were just being very sloppy in the final third. And I've talked about many times before, under Oscar Perez, this Orlando City team tends to play some fun soccer. This was the complete opposite of it. They were looking like the Orlando City of old that just miss any attacking threat going forward. And also, I think you can even say, safe to say, that so far some of those big signings that they had in this off season, yeah, it has not worked out whatsoever, because Facundo Torres, I mean, I don't even know if he actually played in this game, because he looked absolutely invisible in this one. And then Kara, you know, I know he did score a goal last week, but you can still see that his confidence is not up to the point. And this was supposed to be the guy that was going to replace Daryl DK that they sold to West Brom this offseason. Now, in the 64th minute, and speaking of Kara, this was probably the best opportunity that he has, as Cornell was able to rob him. But Cornell was able to rob him there, though the goal wouldn't have counted either way, because the flag went up for offside. Though when I look on the replay, it would have been very close. I mean, it would have been too close to say that if they do go to VAR, there could be a case that one would have been given for a goal for Orlando City. But, you know, Cornell was making sure that was not going to be happening and making the save. I mean, sometimes I know that won't count as a save, but it's still a big save too, because, you know, what if they do overturn it when they do go to VAR potentially. But in the 67th minute, Clement, he actually put the ball in the back of the net, and it looked like the Red Bulls put this one away, but the flag went up for offside. Schlegel then heads it wide from close range. Before, late in this game, there was a penalty that was given to the Red Bulls after VAR deemed that Schlegel basically handballed this one in the box. Now, I do agree, the color commentator, which I think it's the RSL color commentator, Brian Dunn, said that it is harsh, because, you know, with the way that he was jumping, I know his arm is in an outstretched position, but it is almost impossible for a guy that is jumping kind of like backwards without his hand being in an outstretched position. Though that being said, you know, FIFA has implemented the rule where, you know, if you have an outstretched arm like that and it hits your hand, yeah, most of the time that of course is a handball, even if the natural motion that of course is the case. But, you know, I can understand why maybe some Orlando City fans would feel like hard done. And again, I do agree the assessment that Brian Dutton might have mentioned of the fact that this feels like it's harsh against Orlando, and it's definitely harsh for Schlegel to get called for handball there. But nevertheless, it was given a penalty, and in the 88th minute, Lewis Morgan puts away the penalty, and yeah, that pretty much put the cherry on the top, as the New York Red Bulls have now won 4 straight on the road, and now have just tied, well, not tied, but just one away in terms of the most consecutive road win to start the season that was set by the LA Galaxy back in 1998. Shots in this one, I mean, it wasn't even close. 17 shots compared to just 3 that Orlando City had. 6 shots on goal for the none that Orlando City has. 5 shots off target for the 3 that Orlando has. 5 shots that was blocked for the none that Orlando has. And possession-wise, Orlando had the better of the possession, but it doesn't really matter, because that's what the Red Bulls do on the road. Like, again, it's crazy, the fact that, against all odds with the way that they don't possess the ball, they still are able to win games, and that they continue to do well on the road. That, you know, maybe I guess maybe you could say in some way, it kind of reminds me a little bit of the Portland Timbers, where, you know, when you don't have a lot of possession, you do heavily rely on the transition. And I guess maybe the reason why they haven't been winning at home is that they do tend to struggle when they do have the possession, which, if that is the case, then, you know, I will say that maybe that's a little bit worrying sign, because maybe now teams will have the book and say that, well, you know what, let's just give the Red Bulls the possession and see if they can break them down. And more time or not, when teams have done that when they play against the Red Bulls on the road, the Red Bulls have had trouble in terms of handling that. But at least on the road, I guess maybe this really just suits them perfectly, and, you know, it's no surprise that they do able to get these consecutive wins, even though, again, it still defies all logic that of course is the case. Like, I don't remember the last time, at least in the modern era of MLS, that we've seen a team that have looked so bad at home, but yet when they're on the road, they look like a complete different team. But, you know, for Orlando City, this was no doubt one of the worst, and probably the worst game for Oscar Pereira in Orlando City, because they basically just did not show up in this game whatsoever against the New York Red Bulls. But now, moving on, in terms of the next match, is going to be FC Cincinnati versus LAFC. And, you know, I did say that LAFC were heavy favorites and expect to get the win, and they did eventually at the end, but, man, they had to work for it in this one, because FC Cincinnati, you know, I know they are back to their familiar position of dead last in the Eastern Conference, but I think this team has improved under Pat Nolan. And I know the result hasn't really shown, but, you know, to take the best team in the league and give them all, and not to mention, they were incredibly short-handed in this game, because there was 7 starters missing for Cincinnati in this one, and still able to take LAFC all the way and go toe-to-toe with them. It's got to be that's got to be very impressive, in that, you know, if they do get some of those player back, I expect this team should not be dead last in the Eastern Conference for a very long time. Though, that being said, in the first half, just 13 minutes in, there was actually a shout for a penalty for LAFC that was not given, after it looked like Pau tripped Vela in the box, and I feel like that should have been a penalty. I mean, it was pretty clear that Pau tripped Vela in the box, and that Alves Pau in Cincinnati, they really got a very lucky break that the referee did not call a penalty, or even decided to go to VAR to overturn that. Because if that actually gone to VAR, I have no doubt that it will be overturned. But there was not much going in the first 15 minutes, as the shots were only 2-0 in favor of Cincinnati. That would change later in this game. I mean, this actually turns out to be a very entertaining game. Salatino then robbed Mahala Opoku from point-blank range. Roman Salatino, he was definitely a big story coming out of this game. I mean, I know he didn't get the win in this one, but he had an incredible game in this one, and at time kind of stood on his head. And, you know, we'll see whether if he can continue this performance in future game, as, you know, Alec Khan is still injured. And if that's going to be the case, boy, Cincinnati's got a tough decision in terms of goalkeeping position, and that is just that's something that if you told the Cincinnati fans last season, they would think you're crazy with the way that they shouldn't have a tough decision in goalkeeper. I mean, they have a tough decision in terms of which goalkeeper they could put out, because they know both of them suck. But now they have just went from that point to now don't know which goalkeeper they're going to put, because both of them turns out to be solid for this team early in the season. But in the 27th minute, Baji strike went straight to Crepeau, as I wrote there was another slow start for LAFC, which, you know, they kind of mentioned it a couple of times. I think Stu Honan mentioned how LAFC has always get off to a slow start to the season, and he's not wrong. I mean, when you look at how LAFC has been playing this season, they don't score a lot of goals early in the game. They usually score a lot of their goals near the end of the first half, or even in the second half. In fact, there's like a stat saying that in the second half, like, they score the most goal out of any team. So this is really kind of a team that take time to get going, which also is kind of the reason why a lot of these teams, when you face against LAFC, you got to make sure you're off to a good start, because you know that if you don't get off to a good start and this game stays at 0-0, you know LAFC would eventually show up, and they kind of did. So in the 34th minute, after Lucho Costa drive a low shot free kick that went wide, Safuntes puts one into the Bailey from long range before Celentano had to deny Safuntes after a lightning counterattack from LAFC. Callan Costa then fired one high from close range as LAFC was pushing for a late opener in the first half. But instead of that, it's actually FC Cincinnati scoring against the run of play to get the opening goal of the first half. And it's Lucio Costa scoring from Brenner to give Cincinnati a 1-0 lead. But in many ways, it was a gift from Crepeau. Like, he literally tried to force the ball into the middle. And when you're a goalkeeper and you're trying to basically kick it upfield, the last thing you need to do is just basically force the ball into the middle, because more times than not, the attacker is going to know that, and they're going to have an easier time intercepting that, and that is exactly what happened in this case. And yeah, Cincinnati, we're up 1-0 heading into the second half, and in the second half, LAFC continued to press for the equalizer. Salentano denied Arango in the 46th minute. Before on the other end, Crepeau denied Baji from close range. Opoku then puts one straight to Salentano, as I thought this game started to be a bit wide open. But then in the 57th minute, LAFC finally got the equalizer. It's Callan Acosta scoring here to tie the game up at 1 apiece, and that actually took a wicked deflection off of Blackhead, where, you know, that there was nothing that Roman Salentano can do in terms of that play. But yeah, LAFC tied the game up at 1 apiece. They almost made it 2-1 when Vela tried to curl one in, and usually when Vela tried to curl a shot, you know it's going to be close. But this was a rare time where he kind of miscued the curler, and it goes way wide into the stands. But still, I thought momentum was with LAFC, though as soon as I said that, Pau had a shot that took 2 deflection and almost looped over the head of Crepeau, and that Palacio basically, well, actually not loop over the head of Crepeau, but more like looping into the top right. But Palacio was just in the right place, right time to clear that one off the line. Then Cifuentes flashed one wide from long range before Elie heads it wide from close range in the 71st minute. But then in the 79th minute, LAFC would take the lead, and it's Muswatski, the Moose, scoring from Vetla and Blessing to give LAFC a 2-1 lead. This really comes off of a turnover from FC Cincinnati, which, you know, I'm pretty sure that's a familiar kind of commentary for Cincinnati fans to hear, because that's been how their MLS life has been, where it always feels like they always suffer for heartbreaks in the end. And though I will say that when you look at how this game is and how they lost, it's going to be really like at a 3 out of 10 in terms of the pain meter and the heartbreak meter that FC Cincinnati has, because they're so used to this now that they almost expected that even if their team is up 1-0, they know they're not going to win this game. Though Cruz did try to tie the game up for Cincy as he flashed one just wide from close range before Salentano denied Opoku, and on the follow-up, he actually denied Muswatski in the 85th minute. Again, Roman Salentano was having a very good game in this one. Blessing then puts it just wide from close range in the 86th minute. But yeah, that of course was really the final action. I actually ran out of space on the board because, like I said, it was a very entertaining game. But I'll get the stats for you in just a bit. Let me just get the app pull up here, and I will get the stats. I mean, the shots were like something like near 30 apiece for both of these teams. But let me just get it up here. Let me get it up. Let the app load. My internet today is a little bit slow, but now open where the game is. I know the game ended 2-1. Okay, looks like it has loaded. There we go. All right, so Cincinnati has 14 shots compared to 19 that LAFC had. 7 shots on goal compared to 8 that LAFC had. 2 shots off target compared to 8 that LAFC had. And in terms of block shot, 3 shots that was blocked compared to 5 that FC Cincinnati has. And possession-wise, 55% possession compared to 45% possession that FC Cincinnati has in this game. And again, you know, I think for FC Cincinnati, yes, I know it's a painful loss, but, you know, there's really no shame of losing to the best team in the league, and especially they really gave LAFC all they can handle in this one. Though in the end, I'm pretty sure LAFC would be very happy with this result, even if this is definitely not one of their better performance, and that this also is kind of another example of there's no easy win on the road. Like, even if you're seeing some bottom feeder in the standings, it's not easy to win on the road, and that LAFC basically shown that where they really had to grind out a 2-1 win against a very determined FC Cincinnati team. But now moving on into the last game on this board is this game between NYCFC versus Toronto. So remember I said in the preview that I expect this to be a game where there's a lot of goals? Well, yeah, it turns out there was a lot of goals in this game, but yet I did not expect there was going to be 9 goals that was scored in this one. And apparently, I think defense forgot that this game was played at Citi Field. I think the defense thought that this game was at Yankee Stadium because, yeah, they decided not to show up in this game whatsoever. And the goal-scoring party all started in the first half when, in the 12th minute, Jesus Jimenez, he scored again here from Osorio and Thompson. And I think it's about time that there should be some recognition for Jesus Jimenez, who I've said before, he is probably the most underrated striker in the league, a guy that just doesn't get that attention as some number 9s would do. And now, after him scoring 2 more goals, I think he is near the top, if not tie, at the top for the Golden Boot race right now, because he scored 2 goals in this one. But yeah, that gives Toronto a 1-0 lead, though that lead looked like it was short-lived just 3 minutes later as Castellanos put that one into the back of the net. But the goal was disallowed because Morales kind of got in the way of the shot. And when I mean he got away in the shot, he tried to duck under this shot so that it doesn't kind of hit him in the face. But yeah, when you decide to do that and kind of get in the way of it, yeah, you're basically playing the ball, and also he was in an offside position there. So no goal for NYCFC, and in the 23rd minute, Castellanos was trying to score again, but he was robbed by Bono from close range. I mean, Castellanos could have easily had a hat-trick in this game. He was very lively early in this one. But so is NYCFC. I mean, they were hungry to get the equalizer, but instead, in the 28th minute, Jimenez would score again from Thompson to give NYCFC a 2-0 lead, and you're just thinking, oh, is this kind of a repeat of the game we saw early between Inter Miami versus Atlanta, where, you know, one team were able to be so clinical in terms of finishing, the other just aren't able to do, and not to mention their goalkeeper kind of bailing them out with Bono making some big save early in this one, and he would continue to do so as he would rob Castellanos again after Toronto completely switched off after the goal was scored. I mean, they almost commit a schoolboy error where there's a reason why you're the most vulnerable after you score a goal. Like, they were still maybe celebrating that second goal where they forgot to play defense, and NYCFC almost took advantage of that. In the 33rd minute, Bono once again denying Castellanos from close range before Castellanos tried to chip Bono, but missed just high. But it was kind of inevitable that Tati Castellanos was going to get on the score sheet. Like, with how lethal of a goal scorer he is, and you keep giving him time again to have a chance to take a pot shot, he was going to put one in. And he finally did in the 38th minute as he scored here from Thiago's and Parks to make it 2-1 in favor of TFC and cut the deficit, and that would be the scoreline heading into the second half. But that deficit would be erased in the 48th minute when Thiago Andrante would score in the 48th minute, and little do we know that this would be the beginning of an onslaught of goals scored by NYCFC, because not long after they would take the lead, it's Santi Rodriguez scoring from Castellanos to make it 3-2, and then it would be 4-2 just 4 minutes later as Parks would score here, and even wrote the floodgate was open as Toronto is just completely imploding. Like, you know how I said early this season that this is a team that has had problems in terms of defending, and there's times where their defender decided to just do nothing throughout the game. That is exactly what happened in this one, and especially in the beginning of the second half, where I don't think those defenders were still ready for the second half. Like, I think they were still stuck in the locker room, because they're all those goals that was scored from NYCFC was all coming from individual mistake from TFC. But there was no doubt that NYCFC will take it, and in the 72nd minute, they almost scored the 5th unanswered goal when Magno tried to join the party in the goal scoring fest. But he, of course, just puts that one high. In fact, he kind of almost scored a Messi-esque goal where he basically took on 4 TFC defender, but just puts that one high. And if he actually put that in, I mean, that's the goal of the week right there. Like, when you're able to just dance around so many defenders like that and make them look like fools, that is definitely a goal of the week contention. But nevertheless, the 5th goal did came as in the 75th minute, Pereira would score his first career MLS goal from Thiago Martins. I like how Pereira, with his celebration, he kind of decided to celebrate with one of the ball boys. I mean, that's probably an unforgettable moment for that ball boy to get a selfie of a guy that just scored a goal. And probably he has some good story to tell, because I don't think any ball boy or any fan would even have a chance to take a selfie after a player score a goal. I mean, we already see that you know, with Jovic jumping into the supporters to kind of celebrate, but those supporters didn't take a selfie. They just kind of jumping with joy with the goal scored, that of course in that game would turn out to be the only goal that was scored. But in the 78th minute, Jimenez was looking for a hat trick, but he was denied by Johnson in the 78th minute. But then in the 80th minute, Kerr would score his first career MLS goal from Pozuelo to make this a 5-3 game, and that, you know, this was certainly a good day for guys that is getting their first career MLS goal. But all of a sudden you're thinking, well, you know, a game that looked like it was over, maybe not, because in the 87th minute, Alfredo Morales would actually get his 2nd yellow card, and then in the 90th minute, Bradley was score from Pozuelo to make this a 5-4 game, and I immediately wrote, is NYCFC going to go full NYCFC? Because we've seen this before where they always find a way to implode, though, you know, not in the regular season, but more like in the postseason, and it seems like they're doing it now in the regular season. And they almost did implode in the 3rd minute stoppage time, as Kerr almost made it 5-5 in this game, but he puts it wide from close range. And yeah, in the end, NYCFC, who looked like they were, I mean, this was a roller coaster ride of a game where they went from a team that was on the wrong end of a 2-0 deficit despite being the better team to just scoring 5 unanswered goals, and then just kind of fell off a little bit and give TFC a chance to complete their own miraculous comeback. NYCFC hold on to just a barn burner game we saw in Queens in this one. Shots in this one, 22 shots committed, just 8 that Toronto has, 11 shots on goal for the 5 that TFC had, 7 shots off target for the 2 that TFC had, 13 shots that was blocked, or no, I'm sorry, 4 shots that was blocked compared to 1 that TFC had. I thought that was a 13, but it was actually a 4. And possession-wise, 58% possession compared to 42% possession that TFC has in this game. And yeah, you know, for NYCFC, they are probably very fortunate that they were able to be playing as ugly as they did to get all 3 points. Because, like I said, this was a game where, you know, if you're an attacker, this was a dream come true with you being able to score goals and had acres of space to work with. But if you're a defender, this was a nightmare game, and I'm pretty sure both head coaches will not be happy with their defender. But probably Bob Bradley would not be happy too, because he's definitely not feeling better after with the way how that defense just looked completely destroyed, and looked like that defense that we saw early in the season, where they looked like were one of the worst defense, about to become once again one of the worst defensive team in the league. But that being said, that is pretty much it in terms of the review of all 11 of these games. Like I said, you know, this was a long review, but because of some of these crazy games and also some of the uneventful game has happened, that of course is the case. But if you have reached to this far into the video, thank you for your support, and also let me know in the comments below, what do you think of this video and all these 11 games that has happened. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you guys leave a like, smash the subscribe button, and yeah, I of course will see you guys next time.